He Isn't So Bad, written by Allthestripes, and read by Michelle of UAs-Art. Kenny loved his boyfriend. In fact, he would do just about anything for him, including pretending he didn't know his secret identity as a supervillain, Professor Chaos. As a masked vigilante himself, and Professor Chaos's arch nemesis, he felt it added an interesting dynamic to their relationship. Not that Butters was aware of it. No one knew who Mysterion was, but that was how Kenny preferred it. Not for the usual bullshit reasons heroes so often gave, wanted to keep their loved ones safe. When had that ever actually worked out? Or to avoid the attention revealing his identity would bring. No, it was very simple. He didn't want someone to try and stop him. To be blunt, being Mysterion was fun. He hated the power he'd been cursed with, but by donning the mask of a hero, he felt he had a purpose. No matter how often he was knocked down, he would never stop getting back up. As much as dying sucked ass, the perk of scaring criminals shitless when he appeared almost made it worth it. As he stood on top of the library, observing the dimly lit streets below, he spotted a movement in the corner of his eye. Turning, he caught glance of a familiar teal cape just as it flickered out of sight. A smirk forming on his lips, he dropped down, following silently. Mysterion could hear the devious chuckles of the other as he tailed him to the U-Stored, and had to fight back a laugh of his own. Mysterion didn't laugh, no matter how adorable his boyfriend/nemesis was. Staying in the shadows, he watched Chaos check around him for the others, then open the door to the unit and hurry inside, calling out a bright, happy greeting to his second-in-command. Under his breath, Mysterion muttered, "You're way too precious for your own good." He ran across to the building, scaled the wall to the roof, and finding the entrance on top. Making his way to the unit, he took time to appreciate the elaborateness of Professor Chaos's lair. If he wasn't working for evil, Mysterion thought he would be great fun to work for. Decent salary, upwards mobility. Chaos even offered sick leave and personal days. But he would never be able to rationalize doing bad, even for money. What would Karen think if her guardian angel turned to the dark side? Mysterion was glad Professor Chaos was so cheerful. His peppy voice echoed through the unit easily, giving Mysterion a clear path to him. If not for the laugh and excited chatter, he most likely would have gotten lost numerous times in the twisting tunnels. Who knew so much tech and metal tubing could fit in a single space? However they crammed it all in, it was impressive. Emerging into the large room from the vent, he lowered himself slowly onto the walkway high up on the wall to avoid the extra noise. Once safely down, he crept to the edge, taking in the familiar room. He and Chaos had battled there many times. It was almost like a second home. Warmer than his, anyway. Chaos was speaking animatedly with general disarray, the tiny boy listening intently to his boss. He so clearly looked up to the older boy, hanging on to every word he said, and working hard to make Chaos's plans a reality. "By this time tomorrow, everyone in South Park will find their pencil sharpeners have mysteriously vanished," Chaos was explaining, pointing to a chart that faced away from Mysterion's position. "They will have to ration their use, be careful only to write important things. But when their lead wears down or breaks, they will be silenced unless they pay us to give them back their voice." Mysterion bit down on his hand, squeezing his eyes shut. Fuck, Butters was just so cute. He could hardly stand it. He looked back, watching Disarray's face morph into confusion. "Wait, do people still use wooden pencils?" he asked. "Don't most people use mechanical or pens?" Professor Chaos paused mid-laugh, looking at his chart before frowning. "Oh, phooey." He flipped the page, bouncing right on to his next plan. "Then how about this? We and our minions go out to all the houses in South Park and take all the fuses from the electric boxes. Everyone will be without power except for us." Mysterion raised his eyebrows. That was a genuinely good plan. Every now and again, Chaos had a stroke of genius with his evil plots. General Disarray seemed to agree, nodding excitedly. Yeah, then we can rule the town! Noting his cue, Mysterion stood up, calling out for them to hear. Not on my watch, Chaos! Disarray! Jumping over the railing, he grabbed onto the cable that hung nearby, using it to get down fast and with style. Oh no, Mysterion! Disarray yelped, backing away. Chaos glared, puffing out his chest. Run to safety, my trusted general. I will deal with him. Actually, I need to get home. It's late and I have a test tomorrow. The boy answered shyly. Blinking, Butters broke his facade to say, Oh, that's okay. Dougie, school's important. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? They waved goodbye, leaving the two alone. When the sound of the door shutting reached them, they jumped back into their fighting stances. I cannot allow you to take the power of this town, Mysterion growled. If they had no power, Karen might freeze, and he wasn't about to let that happen. I will stop you here and now before you act. You can't stop the great Professor Chaos, the other yelled. I will spread chaos through this town, and then the world! He jumped forward, throwing a punch towards Mysterion's face. Dodging to the side at the last second, Chaos fumbled past him, hitting the ground hard enough to pull all the air out of his lungs. In all their fights, Mysterion had never once hit Professor Chaos. He couldn't bring himself to. Chaos was the only criminal he adopted a new strategy for. Evade until he either hurt himself too much, or was too tired to continue. So far, it had worked perfectly. Aside from the one time the coon had nearly killed Chaos by pushing him off the scaffolding. But Mysterion had kicked that fucker's ass for that already. Don't run away! Chaos snapped. Fight me, wussy! He lunged again, only to go careening into a stack of crates. The wooden containers fell, almost crushing him, though Mysterion yanked him out of the way, only a few bouncing off the back of his legs. Once out of danger, Chaos swung again, not expecting the blow. It hit Mysterion in the face, knocking him back with a pained cry. Ha! I got you! I finally got you! Chaos cheered, forgetting that one hit did not equal a victory. Rubbing the spot, Mysterion scowled. He'd forgotten that, though sweet and not prone to violence normally, Butters packed one hell of a punch. As Chaos celebrated, he darted forward, the sudden movement startling the boy into backing up and tripping over a pipe laying on the ground behind him. For the second time, the wind was knocked out of him, but this time he chose not to get back up. Mysterion, he asked from the floor, how about we call this one a draw? I'll hold you to your word, Chaos, he agreed, then slipped into the shadows. It wasn't really necessary, but even taking his job as seriously as he did, Mysterion had a flair for the dramatic entrance and exits. Call it a weakness if you wanted, but it was the one thing he allowed himself to do, and it added to his mystique, so he felt it was worth it. The next morning, Kenny got to school early. After fighting Chaos, he always made sure to bring a few first aid supplements to school with him. Bless his heart, Butters tried to patch himself up and hide his pain, but Kenny always saw through his forced smile, even if no one else did. He smiled under his hood when Butters walked in. Spotting Kenny, his eyes lit up, and he moved towards him, opening his arms for a hug, which Kenny gladly gave, though he was sure to be gentle, knowing he likely had bruises all over from the crates falling on him. How'd you sleep last night? He asked as he pulled out his little kit, popping it open and taking out the bandages and small bottle of ibuprofen. Butters looked at the items in wonder, but sat at the desk beside Kenny and pulled his shirt up to show off his back, which, as suspected, was covered in black and blue marks. Well, actually, I know my back's all messed up. That's 'cause I tripped. I fell a lot yesterday, he said, grinning over his shoulder as Kenny handed him 3 pills and a bottle of water, before ripping open the bandages and placing them over the cuts that peppered Butters' skin. Kenny smiled as he listened to him talk. Clearly, he was still pumped about landing the hit the night before. Not for the first time, he was glad his hood covered his face. It made it easier to hide his wounds from his knights of justice, though the few times his bruises could be found, everyone assumed they were from his parents. They should heal up in a few days. Try and take it easy until then, yeah? He suggested, pulling Butters' shirt back into place once finished. And watch your feet. You got banged up from a few trips. He never argued with Butters' excuses, finding it simpler to accept whatever he told him. He knew the truth anyway, so it hardly mattered. Ken, how do you know when I need this stuff? Butters asked, turning to face him. His eyes were full of curiosity. But this wasn't the first time he had asked, and he answered as usual. I always know when you need a little extra love and care. He leaned forward, gently bumping their noses together. Because I love you. Giggling, Butters pushed him back lightly. Oh, jeez, Ken, he scolded, though he smiled warmly. By the way, did you hear Mysterion got his lights punched out by Professor Chaos last night at the U-Store-It? The sudden change in topic got a laugh out of Kenny, and he shook his head. No, I haven't. Tell me what happened. He listened contentedly as Butters spun the story of what happened the night before. He painted Chaos as the triumphant victor, though graciously allowing Mysterion a draw when they found their powers were on par. Chaos could have won at any point, Butters explained as Kenny nodded along. He may be the greatest bad guy ever, but he's classy. He works for villainy, but allows Mysterion to play hero. He's the greatest. His eyes sparkled with pride as he finished his story, and Kenny felt himself fall deeper for him. He knew he would never be able to truly fight him, unless Butters was about to hurt himself, or Karen. He couldn't bring him to crush his spirit. He understood something many others didn't as well. Chaos was an outlet for Butters' anger, just as much as Mysterion was for him. They served different purposes, his to right unjust wrongs, and Butters to avenge the wrongs done to him. But it didn't make one lesser than the other, at least not in his eyes. Sure, Chaos was evil, but honestly, he hadn't done a whole lot of bad, and all the plans he had ever had that could do any real damage were stopped. There was no reason to take away his only means of getting rid of his anger. It seemed wrong to Kenny to take that from him, especially when he had nothing else he could do instead. But hey, a little bit of chaos every now and then wasn't so bad.